the oncology wing of the hospital was quiet that morning. Nurses moved with mechanical focus, families gathered around their loved ones, and the scent of antiseptic filled the air. In room 214, however, there was no family. Just an old man, slumped slightly in his chair by the window, staring blankly at the parking lot below. His name was Walter Briggs, a retired railway mechanic. At 78, cancer had taken most of his energy, and poverty had taken nearly everything else. No visitors. No flowers. No cards. Just silence and the slow drip of an four. What most people didn't know was that Walter hadn't always been alone. He'd outlived his wife, lost contact with a distant nephew years ago, and the rest of his friends had either passed or moved on. Life had cornered him quietly. And now, cancer had him in checkmate. He needed surgery to even have a chance at surviving, but the costs were astronomical. Walter couldn't even pay the hospital bills for the room he was in, let alone the treatment itself. The hospital staff, kind as they were, had no more flexibility. Regulations were regulations. No money, no surgery. That same morning, Jason Statham, Hollywood's grittiest action hero, known for his cold stare and merciless characters, stepped through the hospital doors. But he wasn't there for work. He was visiting an old friend, a retired stunt coordinator recovering from a spinal operation. Jason had slipped in without fanfare, wearing a hoodie, sunglasses, and a quiet demeanor that most people wouldn't recognize from his explosive roles on screen. After spending about an hour in his friend's room, Jason made his way toward the elevators when something caught his eye. There, in the corner of the hallway, was Walter, alone, motionless, and visibly unwell. Jason paused. It wasn't just the frailty that drew his attention, it was the expression of quiet defeat. Something about the old man struck him. Instead of leaving, Jason walked over. "Hey mate, you alright?" he asked casually. Walter looked up, surprised. "Yeah, just waiting for something that's probably not coming," he muttered. Jason sat down across from him without hesitation. They talked for a few minutes. Walter didn't say much about himself, but the weariness in his eyes said plenty. Jason, sensing there was more behind this man's silence, gently excused himself and asked a nearby nurse for the attending doctor. "Who's the man sitting near the window in the hallway?" "He doesn't look like he's doing too well," Jason asked. The doctor hesitated for a second, then gave a sigh. "His name's Walter Briggs. Stage 3 colon cancer. He needs surgery urgently or he's got weeks, maybe days. But he doesn't have insurance, no family to help, and the hospital requires some kind of guarantee for the operation. We've stretched everything we can, but we can't legally go further without something official." Jason was silent for a moment. Then, without saying another word, he reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and made a call. 15 minutes later, his assistant arrived with a folder. Jason signed some papers, wrote a check, and told the hospital staff, "Get him the best treatment available. No corners cut. I'll cover it all." The doctor stared at him. "Are you sure?" "This is." "I'm sure," Jason interrupted. "And I'm not doing this for the press. Don't you dare leak it." What happened next swept through the hospital like wildfire. Within hours, Walter was being prepped for surgery. New bedsheets, fresh clothes, top-tier specialists flown in that evening. But the most incredible part wasn't the medical support, it was Walter's face when the doctor told him, "You're scheduled for surgery tomorrow morning, and it's already paid for." "What?" "But I don't." "I can't," Walter stammered, confused. "Mr. Statham took care of it. He believes everyone deserves a fighting chance." Walter cried. Not the loud, theatrical kind of tears, but the quiet ones, the kind you shed when the world reminds you, just for a moment, that there's still good left in it. Jason didn't stay long. Before leaving, he sat with Walter one last time. "I used to watch your movies with my wife," Walter whispered. "She loved how tough you were." Jason smiled. "She sounds like a smart woman." They shook hands. No cameras. No interviews. just a silent promise between two men who knew what it meant to fight. Walter survived the surgery. He later sent Jason a handwritten letter saying, "You didn't just save my life. You reminded me it was still worth living." Jason never spoke publicly about the incident. But the hospital staff would never forget the day the toughest guy in Hollywood walked into their building and showed the kind of strength no movie could ever capture.